Welcome back to CityLine. With me, I have somebody who I have not spoken with in probably a good minimum 6 months, maybe even 8. I've been wondering how he is and how his company is doing, and now we get to find out. I'm talking about Kurt Bailey. Kurt is the president and CEO of Bloodworks Northwest. Kurt, welcome back to CityLine.
Well, thank you, Amanda. It's a pleasure to see you, and I appreciate being welcome back to the show.
Well, it's always great to see you. Now, I understand that there's a national blood shortage. That does not surprise me. How is this impacting Bloodworks?
Well, nationally, blood stocks are quite low. And in fact, across the nation with the independent blood centers as well as the Red Cross, there's reports that supplies are down by at least 10%.
Ooh.
Consequently, patients around the country are in need of blood every day and at risk of not getting it. Here in the Pacific Northwest, we're keeping up, but really just barely. And what's happening is our hospitals are very, very full. And like many other parts of the economy and healthcare, we're having our own staffing shortages. And so it's very, very difficult to keep the blood supply at pace with what patients need here in our region.
So, Kurt, I've heard that we're hearing that some blood types are down to less than a day. What does that mean for us?
Well, at Bloodworks, we hold stocks of blood for the region. It's sort of like a safety stash in case there's a really unusual need for blood in the Pacific Northwest. Now, the hospitals have their supplies for daily use for patients that they are treating. What we hold is the stocks that then get sent out to the hospitals to replenish them, plus a little extra just in case. And it's that just in case amount that we're really worried about, because we do sometimes have tragic events. We have the Amtrak derailment, we had the duct tour crash, we have had shootings in the past. And then sometimes it's just bad weather or some other factor that makes it hard to collect blood. And so when our central reserve gets low, we start to get worried. And that's not a good thing for the community.
No. And we're also hearing that there's a national shortage of platelets. Mm-hmm. And I would be remiss if I didn't ask you to tell us, if someone doesn't know, what is a platelet and why is this concerning?
Well, the human blood is really a marvel, and it isn't so simple as blood. In fact, it has some constituent parts, and one of the cells within your blood, it's really a cell fragment, is called a platelet. And the platelet is what helps you clot. So if you don't have platelets and you're bleeding, that's a problem. Some patients, particularly those patients undergoing cancer treatment, have depleted platelets. And as a result, they need a transfusion. The thing with platelets, well, there's two cool things about them, or interesting things about them. One is they don't last very long. So we can only keep them for 5 to 7 days. They're only useful for that period. So you have to use them very quickly. So it's kind of tough to match how many donors we have and how many patients we have. The other amazing thing, though, is that if you donate platelets, you can donate them quite often because Mother Nature has given you an abundance of platelets. You have far, far more than you require. And so you can donate platelets much more frequently than you can donate whole blood.
Well, that would make sense now in terms of the shortage, that because the shelf life is just a window in there, isn't it? So we're experiencing now what's called the perfect storm of factors: confusion over donor eligibility after vaccines, staffing shortages that you mentioned, and a growing number of no-shows. So why is the no-show factor a big deal, Kurt?
Well, we are appointment only. And so appointment only helps us keep everybody socially distant. It ensures that our centers are not congested. It's not a big mob. The other thing is actually donors really like it because when you have an appointment, you show up, you register on your phone. It's all electronic now. And all of a sudden, you're getting your vitals tested, and you're, before you know it, donating red cells or platelets or whatever you've come in for. So it works really nicely. The difficulty is if you don't show up for your appointment, well, no one else shows up to replace you because it's an appointment. So you got to show up. Otherwise, don't make it. So we really urge people to think about the appointment as a promise. And if you promise to come donate, please keep your promise. And if you're not ready to make that promise, hey, make it for a day further out. Because what's important is that you make the appointment, you keep the appointment, and then when you're there, you make your next appointment. And it's all about creating this habit of donating back to your community.
Absolutely. Just like when you leave the dentist, the first thing you do is make another appointment. There we go. So let's talk about staffing, because that certainly is in the headlines. It seems like there is not a business or a corporation that doesn't have staffing shortage in their vocabulary. You're having problem finding enough blood collectors, also known as phlebotomists. So what are you doing to address that, Kurt?
Well, we are pretty aggressively recruiting phlebotomists across all of Bloodworks, and we operate from the Canadian border all the way down to South Central Oregon. Like many employers, we are offering financial incentives, signing bonuses, retention bonuses, increases in compensation. So we are attempting to be competitive, because we do know that those who are looking for opportunities have a lot of them to choose from. We also believe that in the case of Bloodworks, for many people, it's an extraordinary chance to be part of life-saving work. And for those persons who really find purpose in helping their community, find purpose in improving the health of others, find purpose in giving back, Bloodworks not only should be a financially rewarding place to work, but it also should be a very personally rewarding place to work as well. So over time, we're hoping to recruit really quite a large number of phlebotomists at Bloodworks. We're excited by the opportunity to continue to expand and are optimistic that we'll be able to do so in the coming months. But the reality is it takes time. We're not the only company in this boat. And so it's going to require a little bit of patience as we rebuild the team and in turn increase our ability to collect ever more blood.
If we have some phlebotomists who are watching right now, can they get more information by going to your website?
I'm sure they can, and please do. We would love to have those persons who are trained in phlebotomy, wherever you may have received your training or wherever you have experience. We would love to speak with you and hopefully welcome you to the Bloodworks family.
I love that. Kurt, how has the pandemic impacted Bloodworks?
Well, the effects have been really fascinating. So on the one hand, it's been a rough ride, because at first we were really worried that the blood supply would collapse as all of our mobile drives had to shut down. We can't use our buses anymore because you can't socially distance on a blood bus. Kids weren't in schools, so we couldn't go to schools. That was a really scary period. But on the other hand, Amanda, when we asked the community to turn out in order to make sure that we had enough blood, even though we couldn't do mobile blood drives, the community responded in a way that was really beautiful. And what a remarkable example of our humanity and caring for one another. So that was a good thing. We discontinued our mobile program, but then we invented this idea of the pop-up donor center, where we set up for prolonged periods in venues that otherwise aren't being used. T-Mobile Park was a fabulous example, 10 weeks, sponsored by the Mariners. Boeing Museum of Flight, the Moore Theater, the Paramount, Portland Art Museum. It was just really a great way to use these venues for community good that otherwise, even though iconic, weren't very busy during the pandemic. So that was a good thing. We went from folks walking into our centers, which allowed us to be more flexible, I suppose, but it wasn't as good. It was not as good of an experience for our donors. The experience now is better. It's smoother. It's like your dentist's office. You walk in, you're in the chair, a few minutes later. Maybe I shouldn't compare donating blood to going to the dentist. That was probably a bad thing. But anyway, it's really easy. And that was an innovation to go to appointment only, and we think donors really like it. So on the one hand, Amanda, it's been really a trial to try and keep up with the needs of the community and making sure that anyone who needs blood receives blood. But on the other hand, we're stronger now. And I do think the community will appreciate that strength in the years to come.
Absolutely. I mean, speaking with you months ago, when you mentioned the Museum of Flight, I thought that is such a genius idea to be looking at all these fabulous aircrafts while you're getting your arm, just gently poked. I'm there. So December 18th, it is State Blood Donor Day. So what is the message there? And what should we do?
Well, on December 18th, is Blood Donor Day in the state of Washington, and by the way, in the state of Oregon. Oh. And for both of those states, it is a day in which we hope to remind everybody to become a habitual blood donor. I think of it as kind of part of being our keeper for our neighbors and our coworkers and our friends and our family. And it's that thing we do that we don't have to do, but when we do it, we just make the world a better place. And it can affect the lives of people around us. 1 in 6 Americans will be transfused. So if you think about the size of a family, well, it's pretty likely that someone in your immediate family is going to need blood. Well, where's that blood going to come from? It's going to come from a stranger who decided, not ever knowing where their gift would go, came in and donated because they knew it would go to someone who would need it. And that's a pretty special thing and a pretty remarkable example of humanity. And that's what we hope State Blood Donor Day will commemorate.
So this may seem like such an obvious question, but given all that we've talked about, how can our viewers do something to help right now? If they feel the urge to donate, how do they go about doing that? If they want to show up just for December 18th, how do they go about doing that?
Well, thanks for asking it that way. They can't all show up on December 18th.
No,
we don't have enough people to collect them. So you've got to make your appointment. And what's hard, because when we want to help now. That's just people. Well, what's hard is the way you help actually is in 2 steps. You help now by making the appointment, and then you help later by keeping your appointment. And when you're there, we're going to ask you to make your next appointment, but just do those 2 steps. So it's a 2-step process, which does delay the feeling like I want to help right this second. But if you just make that appointment, keep that appointment. And an appointment made next week or the week after is no less valuable than an appointment made for tomorrow. An appointment next week or the week after is actually really precious because it helps us understand what is the amount of blood that's flowing in over time. And that's really important right now, as we're just a little bit less flexible than we've been, and our supplies are a little bit lower than we'd like. So make the appointment, keep the appointment.
Kurt, you always show up with your full heart, with your head and your mind and your soul connected. I couldn't think of a better person in our community to be in charge of blood than you. So thank you, Kurt, so much for your time, for your team, all of the hours and the hard work that you've been putting in. You don't stop thinking about blood supplies. You wake up and think about them. You go to bed thinking about them. So there's no way for us to pay you back for your gift of time. But I'm going to echo what you just said. Make an appointment and keep it. Kurt, thank you so much for being here today.
It's a delight, Amanda. Thank you as always. Wonderful to join you.
You're more than welcome. We have much more to come on CityLine. Don't go away. We'll be right back.